So another question I get asked a lot is, how do you know if it's just a speech delay or if it actually is autism? Because it's very common for children to have a speech delay who have autism. I think the main thing to think about is the other aspects of autism. If those are also present, then it's likely that it's autism and not just a speech delay. So for example, in order to be diagnosed with autism, you have to have restrictive repetitive behaviors. And there's essentially 4 different ways that presents. One way is hyper or hypo-reactivity to sensory input. So you're overreacting to sensory items or underreacting. So for example, maybe they hate to wear socks. They hate how the cotton feels on their toes. That would be a hyper-reactivity to sensory input. On the other extreme, if they're hypo-reactive to sensory input, maybe they love jumping onto the couch cushions over and over again. They like to feel all that input on their body. And why we may look at that and go, oh, that seems dangerous. Or, oh wow, I can't believe you're jumping so much. Does not bother you. It doesn't bother them. For them, it's actually kind of regulating, and it's able to I'm spinning very ever so slightly. I was very passionate. Then I was like, woo! All right. So individuals that are hyporeactive are underreactive. So those individuals often crave or seek lots of sensory input. So one example I can think of is jumping in couch cushions over and over again, or spinning a lot. People that spin a lot, they like that vestibular sort of input, so they spin. And while just thinking about that makes me dizzy, some people really like how that feels, so they keep doing it. And they don't have that same reaction, so they're hypo-responsive. Hyper-reactive are people that are very sensitive to maybe touch or to different fabrics or tags on clothes. So I know a lot of young kiddos that hate to wear socks because the cotton, or some people can feel the little line in the toe bed of the socks, that bothers them to the point where they can't wear them. It's almost like sandpaper on their feet. So that would be the hyperreactivity. So that's one of the 4. Another one is highly fixated interest. So this is where they really only like to play with Legos, or they only like to watch Bluey. There's very short little things that they like, or a very short list of things that they like. And that's all they do. And you may introduce something else and they may be interested momentarily with that, but essentially they keep going back to their preferred interest. Another one is sort of inflexibility or behavioral rigidity, and this often presents as tantrum-like behavior, where people get very upset and almost inconsolable when things don't go as expected or they don't get what they want. So they have lots of crying, lots of maybe flopping to the ground, maybe yelling. So they're just very, very upset when things don't go the way they thought or the way that they wanted them to go. And the last one is stereotype movement, which is either verbal speech or body movements. So historically speaking, or classically speaking, hand flapping is one of the most popular sort of restrictive headed behaviors that goes on. But it could also be saying the same word over and over again, often out of context, or the same phrases. Something called movie talk or scripting is where you repeat sort of phrases that you hear on TV, in movies, on YouTube videos. So essentially just repeating phrases over and over again, and especially matching the tone. Now, someone with a speech delay may not do that aspect because they don't have a lot of speech, but they could do the motor aspect. They could be flapping their hands, they could be moving around their body. So those 4 sort of things are definitely going to be more characteristic of an individual with autism spectrum disorder and less characteristic of someone with just a speech delay. The social aspect of autism spectrum disorder does get impacted a little bit with only a speech delay, because if you think about social behavior, communication is the main modality for social behavior. So that alone wouldn't necessarily be as much of a red flag for autism as if you had the speech delay with the restricted repetitive behaviors.